Something I just came across, and this is a book. I put photographs of this on my page. If you look at my page on tnsradio.ning.com, there's two new photographs been added there from a book entitled Outlines of Constitutional Law. It's by Chalmers and Asquith. Sweet and Maxwell Limited were the printers, and it was printed in 1921, I think, or 22, right? A lot of very interesting books appeared on the shelves around that time, folks, for obvious reasons, if you know what I mean. This is page 199 and half of page 200. I'm going to read it because I think it's vital that you know this stuff. This is entitled The Sheriff. The sheriff, in brackets, Vice Comes, or V-I-C-E hyphen C-O-M-E-S, close brackets, was formerly the deputy of the Earl or Ealdorman of the Shire, and when the Bishop and Earl gradually desisted from judicial work at the county court, the sheriff took upon himself their functions. When in the reign of Henry II, the King's justice began to override local justice, it frequently fell to the lot of the sheriff to execute the King's writs. To this circumstance can be attributed the present function of the sheriff in executing writs of feri facias, elegit, and capias, etc., or FIFA they call that one, I think. There are two kinds of sheriffs, viz., sheriffs of counties and sheriffs of certain ancient cities and boroughs, chosen by those towns, and there's brackets. As to these localities, see Odgers on Local Government, 1st edition, page 95 and 96, close brackets. Next paragraph. The county sheriff is elected in the following manner. The Chancellor of the Exchequer and certain judges of the High Court meet at the Royal Palace of Justice, the Strand, Middlesex, on November 12th in each year, and choose 3 men of sufficient means from each county. The sovereign pricks, that's with an R, pricks the name of one of these 3 men, who is then duly constituted sheriff of the county for the year. The sheriff is bound to serve without salary, but he is consoled by the fact that he takes precedence over the entire county, the Lord Lieutenant excepted. That doesn't mean the Lord Lieutenant is above the sheriff, by the way, folks. That just means that the sheriff isn't above him. If he refuses his services, he can be fined. I'm going to read that again. If he refuses his services, he can be fined. That's male or female, folks, the way they write these books. His duties are to execute High Court writs, summon juries, supervise executions of persons sentenced to death, that's persons sentenced to death, and perform the duty of returning officer at a parliamentary election. Since the passing of the Prisons Act, 1877, the sheriff has no longer control over prisoners in his county. He has to wait upon the judges at the assizes and to pay liberally for their entertainment. Though almost all the duties of the sheriff are undertaken by his deputy, the under-sheriff, the former, that means the sheriff, is responsible for the acts of the under-sheriff and all persons engaged under him. So, for example, think to yourself, the locksmiths, etc., who break into your property to assist the seizure of property and whatnot. Sheriff's responsible for all that, folks. Says here, e.g., bailiffs who execute writs of execution, where the sheriff's underlings commit tortious acts in the course of their employment. The sheriff is responsible, e.g., trespassing in a man's house. It doesn't say persons, it says trespassing in a man's house. When judgment has been entered in the High Court for an unliquidated amount, interlocutory judgment in brackets, it often falls to the lot of the sheriff to assess the damages. On these occasions, the under-sheriff sits in the court as judge and hears both sides on the question of damages and all matters relevant thereto. Did you hear that, folks? He sits as judge. Okay, so in other words, sometimes you got to check whether that's a judge and whether that man is a judge in front of him. He might be an under-sheriff, which is very important to know. A jury of 12 men then fix the damages. He has similar function in compensation claims where land is compulsorily taken. End of chapter. Now there's some big, fat, juicy stuff in there, folks. Believe me. Big, fat, juicy stuff.